Steve-O goes woke. It's true. Would you believe me if I told you that Steve-O had a planned stunt that was looking to be anti-trans and was convinced not to do it based on a voice of reason? Would you believe me? And if you're not familiar with Steve-O, comes with this little show called Jackass that turned into a movie franchise. If you're above the age of 30-ish, you probably know about it. I would say it's one of the guilty pleasure shows I used to watch back during the heyday of MTV when you had like Jersey Shore and Jackass and all that stuff. There were so many shows, so many over the years. But he rose to fame where they got paid for being jackasses and doing crazy, ridiculous stunts. And over the years, they've tried to like up the ante even more. It's really interesting to see like where all of the people from that show have gone on and what they've continued to do. But Steve-O being the voice of reason in a like onslaught of anti-trans stuff was not on my bingo card for 2024. But here we are. So Steve-O explains why he didn't get breast implants. The Jackass star feels the universe intervened to keep him from going through with the planned stunt. If you've noticed Steve-O getting up to the various hijinks in recent months, it's because the Jackass alum has been filming a wild collection of stunts to be featured in his upcoming live tour. So it's for a live tour. The Super Dummy Tour. But as he tells Consequence in a recent interview, one of the toughest experiences came about these because of a stunt that didn't happen, his plan to get breast implants for a short period of time. It nearly happened, to be clear. I got within 10 hours of being in surgery for that. The surgery was supposed to happen at 8 in the morning, and at 10 p.m. the night before, I got a call that the anesthesiologist backed out of it because he found out that it was me doing a stunt. Can't blame him. I would say absolutely understandable. And that kind of set off a chain reaction where the doctor didn't want to be associated with it anymore, and they were having trouble finding another surgery center to make it happen. Here's the thing. Anybody in the United States who practices this kind of surgery would not want to be involved with this, because if the stunt, depending on which way it went viral or went sideways or got clipped or something, they would 100% be involved with whatever the fallout from that is. And there's no way around that. He goes, at that time, it was just seen as a setback. The idea wasn't dead yet. We were talking about going to a different country and smuggling me in at 6 in the morning and urging me to say that it happened in Mexico. Yeah, you can go to other places and get this stuff done, which is why a lot of times when people make arguments about like restrictions on how surgery works when it comes to people who are trans or anybody getting elective surgery. I know friends that have done weight loss surgery and they've had to leave the country to go to other places. And I'm not speaking ill of like healthcare in other places, but when you go somewhere to get a surgery done that you can't get done here because your doctor doesn't think it's necessary, or maybe it's too expensive or whatever it might be, there's always a risk that something is going to happen. I've actually had friends who are no longer with us because they went and got surgeries done in places that just do them if you pay them enough money, and they didn't get the proper follow-up care. There wasn't proper stuff done in the facilities they went to, and they were allowed to leave and fly home the very next day in pain with, it wasn't good, put it that way. But then he believes fate intervened. On that day that the scheduled surgery was supposed to happen, I was checking out at the supermarket, and the person ringing up my groceries was evidently transgender, and it struck me as a sign from the universe. And when he says evidently, I'm guessing there was some sort of like, maybe a trans pride button or something along those lines, or maybe they told Steve-O that they were. So I asked the transgender person if I could run something by them, and I had a conversation with this person that had a profound impact on me. That's wild. Did you have this conversation with the person ringing up your groceries? I mean, I'm glad that you did based on the outcome of this, but that's kind of incredible. Prior to then, Steve-O hadn't felt the need to run the idea by anyone because I knew what my motivation was. I knew what my intention was, and it wasn't to be hurtful to anybody. I was just trying to get laughs. I'd done a bunch of workshop shows to test out the material, and I had a number of trans people come up to me after the show's divorce support for the stunt. And I think that some people would have been okay with it and some people wouldn't have, and it would have been a mixed bag. I mean, that is with anything when it comes to comedy, but I think there is sort of this situation where your fans are going to just support it. You know what I mean? They're going to say, oh, it's cool or whatever, because they're used to that. But you really need to speak to people outside of that space. I do it all the time. I go outside of this bubble that I have here to talk to people, get their opinions. I think it is important to hear somebody else's valid concerns. Good faith, bad faith, it's all bullshit. It's either useful or unuseful criticism, and you have to determine what is useful to you and what is unuseful. It doesn't matter if somebody doesn't like you or not. If they're giving you criticism, there could be some useful information in that criticism. So you should at least listen to it and hear what it is. However, he confirms that before the scheduled surgery date, it really didn't have any dedicated meetings or conversations with trans people because I didn't really feel that I had to, because I just felt like the universe had put this encounter before me, and ultimately I decided that the universe had intervened. Here's one of the bits that Steve-O had planned to do after getting breast implants. He felt it was going to be really funny. Now, here's where it gets a little problematic, and I'll explain why. It involved me getting my whole body waxed with airbrushing to remove all of my tattoos, and I lost literally 20 pounds to get really slender and petite, so I'd be hairless, tattooless, with a pink bikini top on and Daisy Duke shorts and a motorcycle helmet covering my entire face. So he was going to basically catfish. And one of the big red flags about this is what anti-trans people claim that trans people can do. Just off the top. Like pretend to be a woman for XYZ, whatever the reason is. So you have someone here now, a straight, I'm assuming Steve-O is straight. I don't think I've heard otherwise. So straight, white, cisgender guy, becoming a woman temporarily for whatever reason. It's literally the argument that they have. So that's problematic right there. He goes, in that ensemble, he says, I would ride a pink Vespa around at the Sturgis motorcycle rally, completely in disguise, where nobody could tell why I was. And then I had the plan was to film with hidden cameras as I rode up to big gangs of motorcycle riders. That sounds smart, right? Who would presumably be checking me out. And then I would walk up and pull off my helmet and say, yeah, dude, and get this crazy reaction, which predictably would be contentious. Okay, so yes, you would be going into a space pretending to be a trans person, specifically to make these guys feel uncomfortable in a space that they are normally comfortable in. And that is a lot of what Jackass does. I will give them that. That is kind of what they do. But this is pretending to be a trans person. It's not you going in, wearing a costume. You are going to get surgery to make yourself look like a trans person, which, yeah, not good. The person Steve-O spoke with said, and my feeling was the ultimate statement of body autonomy for me saying my body, my choice. That part was okay. But the part where I deliberately went to try and trick people into thinking that I was a woman and then fooling them and then kind of celebrating the idea of hate towards trans people, that was a thing. Bingo. That's the first thing. This is like, regardless of whether or not the stunt would have been funny, the fallout from that would have been particularly egregious online. And I'll explain why in just a second. Additionally, the person Steve-O spoke with described how they weren't allowed to use the bathroom in their place of work. There were like maybe 28 states in the country that would arrest them for having an ID that said female on it. There were politicians making concerted efforts to lock them up in internment camps. It was a really pretty heartbreaking to the level of oppression that was described. Now, I know some people are going to push back in the comments and go, oh, name all of these places where all this is happening. And typically I would, if I was trying to like be specific about somebody using this platform or their platform to spread this information. Like if this was a person, a celebrity, or someone here on YouTube, I'd be like, well, let me fact check it or whatever. This is a person at a grocery store working their job. Steve-O spoke to them and they were giving their opinion, and this was spoken to him. And then he should have done his due diligence to check any of this if he needed to, or if he just decided to go with their opinion about all of this or how they felt about all this. But again, there's no reason to fact check this. This is a conversation that was had with Steve-O one-on-one. This isn't a person with a platform. So Steve-O says, frame like that, I thought this in a way that I hadn't before, where, now maybe it's not all fun and games, especially with pranks. Like I would have considered it to be better footage if I was beaten up at the motorcycle rally, and just having that mentality was very flawed, because ultimately it would be an exercise in celebrating violence towards trans people. At least it would be interpreted that way by some. And when it was put to me that way, I thought, wow, maybe I missed the mark on this one. Holy crap. Like, this is crazy. This is grown people shit. This is how a real person reacts to a bad decision. Like he heard the story and he said, you know what? Maybe this isn't the direction I should go. On top of that, on the internet here, if this footage would have came out, I can see it already. Anytime a trans person or a queer person responds to somebody saying something they don't like, you would get a clip of Steve-O with breast implants getting beat up at a motorcycle rally. That would be the gift that you would see in response. That would be the meme you would see in response to every trans person trying to say anything on the platform. And then it says, in addition to the motorcycle rally stunt, Steve-O said he had plans for hidden camera pranks and strip clubs as well. And I took my pole dancing training remarkably seriously. I was doing some seriously inverted pole dancing acrobatics. Footage of this pole dancing training will be featured on the tour, along with footage from his doctor's office. There's some pretty shocking stuff, and he will explain to the audiences why he ended up not going through with it. I really don't avoid the topic. I explained that I felt the universe intervened on my behalf. So this is good. Like, not only did he push through with the grown folks stuff by changing his mind about this, but he's going to actually use his tour as a way to talk about how this mistake could have happened and how it changed. And I think that's really important, considering you have other comedians who are like, I'm just going to double down, triple down, quadruple down on stuff, instead of listening to some of the criticism they get for the content they're making. And again, free speech, do whatever you want, but I think this is pretty remarkable. While he seems at peace with the decision to not do the stunt, Steve-O still admits that it was difficult for me looking back. I'm extremely grateful that it didn't happen. I'm really glad that I didn't go through with it, but that didn't make it any easier because when I was so vocal about my plans to do it, and I've never been the kind of artist to say I was going to do something and then not do it. That was when I had trouble with it, not honoring my word. But look, I mean, this is you showing growth. It's showing that you have grown up, and I honestly am shocked that it's Steve-O. He continues, he does feel the stunt not happening is a good thing, and the show still has a bunch of really good comedy from the whole episode. To the extent which I was prepared to go through with it was hilarious in its own right. I think it's a very valuable trait to be able to admit when you've done things wrong. I agree with that. So this is a good example of like someone who had the opportunity to go through with something that could have been very, very bad. It could have led to a lot of anti-trans memeing online, a lot of people being harassed over this. I'm glad that this didn't happen for the trans community, for the queer community, for him to be out there showing a trans person being assaulted and beat up at a motorcycle rally or a strip club. I think that just wouldn't have been good.